Hi, this is Miss Wright, and I am going to go over the passage that begins the gray-eyed Morn in Act 2 of Scene 3 from Romeo and Juliet. This is a beautiful illustration of the friar as he is collecting his herbs. And some concepts that I'm going to try to discuss are the golden mean, which is a middle course that avoids extremes in either direction. Moral relativism is a philosophy that asserts there is no global absolute moral law that applies to all people for all time and in all places. Situational ethics, a system of ethics in which moral judgments are thought to depend on the context in which they are to be made rather than on general moral principles. We'll also be talking about God's grace, which means mercy or goodness, and man's will, which can often refer to passion, desire, even evil. Some things that we want to think about. We want to think about the author's purpose. Why was this soliloquy included in Act 2? Think about the play's structure and the friar's characterization. How are each of these advanced by this soliloquy? Scene 3, Friar Lawrence's cell. The friar says, "The gray-eyed morn smiles on the frowning night, checkering the eastern clouds with streaks of light, and flecked darkness like a drunkard reels from forth day's path and tightens burning wheels." And basically what's happening here is the friar is in his herb garden. The sun is just coming up. It's summertime, so it might be really early, like 5 in the morning. And he notices the beautiful colors of the sky as the sun begins to rise. And he makes the simile that the night is going away like a drunkard tottering off to bed. And then he creates a mythological illusion with the Titans burning wheels that makes us think of Hyperion or even Apollo riding the sun chariot across the sky. This is what we mean by a wicker basket, or he calls it an osier cage, which would be made out of wicker. Now ere the sun advance his burning eye, the day to cheer and night's dank dew to dry, I must upfill this osier cage of ours with baleful weeds and precious juiced flowers. So the friar, again, is referring to the sun as the burning eye. I put personification. I also put mythological allusion because we know that Helios was supposed to be like a giant eye in the sky that could see everything that people did. Uh, the days to cheer and dank's night dew to dry. Dank, dew, dry is obviously alliteration. Then we have the opposites of day and night. I have inversion for upfill. Instead of saying I'm filling up my wicker basket, he says upfill this basket. And enjambment, because there's no punctuation at the end of this line or this line, the idea has to flow over into the next line with baleful weeds and precious juiced flowers. So I put weeds are opposites of flowers, and baleful here means evil or deadly, and the precious juice, these are the ones that are healthful, life-giving, and this whole speech that he will give is a series of rhyming couplets. The earth that's nature's mother is her tomb. What is her burying grave? That is her womb. And from her womb children of diverse kind we sucking on her natural bosom find. Many for many virtues excellent, but none but for some, and yet all different. So we have this whole idea of Mother Nature, personification. We have tomb and womb, which are rhyming, but they're also antithesis. And we have what's What is her burying grave? That is her womb. This is a repository for the dead. This is where life begins. So that's antithesis again. On her, from her womb, children of diverse kind. So we definitely have personification and imagery. And then inversion, I put, because we wouldn't say we sucking on her natural bosom find, we would say we find sucking on her bosom. So he inverts the syntax to complete the rhyme. Many for many, that's epanellipsis. Virtues excellent means great goodness, that there are many things in nature that have great goodness. None but for some, and yet all different. So things in nature come in all different aspects, all different forms. Omikkel is the powerful grace that lies. Grace here means goodness in plants, herbs, stones, and their true qualities. For naught so vile on the earth does live, but to the earth some special good doth give. And this is where we see the situational ethics come in. So he's saying mikkel means abundant or very large, great in size. So great is the powerful grace that lies in plants, herbs, and stones and their true qualities. So plants, herbs, stones have the power for great goodness, great healing. And there is nothing so vile, so evil on the earth that within it doesn't have some special good. Even the things that we think of as deadly, poison, or evil, if we research them, we find out they have some good qualities. That can also be with people. People can be very negative or evil, but even the worst person has some good qualities. This is an illustration from our film. Not nor aught so good, strained from that fair use, revolts from true birth, stumbling on abuse. Virtue itself turns vice, being misapplied, and vice sometimes by action dignified. So there is nothing that is so good, but when strained from its true purpose, turned from its true purpose, will revolt from its true purpose if it's being abused. So virtue itself turns vice. Goodness can turn to evil, antithesis, when misapplied, when misused. And evil can turn to good when it is properly used. Action dignifies here means properly used. Within the infant rind of this weak flower, poison has residence and medicine power. Here's the main idea. For this being smelt with that part cheers each part, being tasted stays all senses with the heart. So he's looking at a specific plant that he has in his hand, and he's saying, within this flower lies both poison and medicine. What's the difference? If you smell it, it revives you. If you taste it, it will kill you. That's what he's saying here. Two such opposed kings encamp them still. And by kings, that's a metaphor. He means forces. In man as well as herbs. So now he's making the connection between plants and human beings. Grace and rude will. God's mercy and man's desire. And where the worser is predominant, where evil reigns, full soon the canker death eats up that plant. So if we allow evil to go unchecked in either plants or human being, what comes about? Death. If a blight takes a plant and it goes unchecked, that plant will die. If evil is allowed to reign in human beings, they will bring about death. It will bring about death. And canker, you can also think of maybe like a cancer. If cancer goes unchecked, well, then the human being dies. Here is the actor from our film. The middle course that avoids, we said the golden mean is the middle course that avoids extremes. And you'll see this more later on. The friar trying desperately to find a passage between the two families that not siding with one or the other, but attempting to bring them both together. Moral, relative, and situational ethics. I hope you were able to see that if you read between those lines, this is a man who does not believe in absolutes. This is a man who believes that things are good or evil depending on how they are used. Okay. The author's purpose. Shakespeare includes this soliloquy to help audiences accept the friar's choices and behaviors later in Act 2. We must understand the friar's thinking in order to suspend our disbelief or condemnation when he agrees to marry Romeo and Juliet and when he does, in fact, perform the rite. By allowing the audience to understand that the monk does not believe in absolutes, including absolute good or absolute evil, we can accept that he might deceive the Montagues and Capulets for a greater purpose. Normally, we would say, oh, that's a kind of lie, that's a kind of fraud. What kind of man of God is he? But he has a greater purpose in doing this deception. He wants to bring about some greater good, which is to unite the two families. And so he's not going to avoid doing this, what he may consider evil thing, because he's hoping that the outcome will have a much greater impact. All right. The friar says, in one respect I'll thy assistant be, for this alliance may so happy prove to turn your household's rancor to pure love. And that's his motivation for bringing the two families, for joining Romeo and Juliet in marriage. Um, uh, his decision here would make absolutely no sense if we had not read the soliloquy prior and realized what his thinking is in going about joining these two young people against their family's wishes. Okay, that's all I have for you today. I hope that this is helpful. Go back, make your annotations, look, place the literary terms in the text and make your notes. And I will see you back in class. Have a great day. Bye-bye.